Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to tonight's Planning Committee meeting. My name is David Watts. I'm the chair of the meeting. Sat next to me is Ryan Dawson, who's the head of planning for Broxtowe Borough. And on the table in the middle and around the sides are the councillors who will decide on the individual items. The way that each application is dealt with is that I will announce the application. I will ask Mr Dawson to say a few words to introduce it. We then, for most of the items on the agenda, have public speakers, and so I'll call those in turn. And if you're the person speaking, there is a microphone over to my right, to your left. If you take that seat, and we give you 3 minutes, and we'll give you a prompt about 30 seconds before the end, once you get going, so that you know it's time to be starting to wind up. After you've spoken, if you could then take your seat again, and the next speaker will speak if there's more to go. After that, after we've had the public speakers, we can then have ward members who aren't members of this committee to speak, and then I will move the resolution, which is either to grant or refuse planning permission. And that doesn't necessarily mean that I agree with it or I disagree with it. It's simply the process that opens up the matter for debate, and the councillors will then debate the decision. We vote normally by a show of hands, unless a recorded vote is asked for, which sometimes is, in which case we record everybody's vote individually, but normally it's just done by a show of hands. If you want to leave after the item that you're here for has been discussed, please feel free to do so, but equally you're quite welcome to stay and listen to the rest of the meeting. So those are the introductory words. A couple of things that we have to go through on the agenda before we get on to the items. So number one, apologies for absence and notification of substitutes. Thank you very much. So that's Councillor Owen substituting for Councillor Ball. Number two, declarations of interest. I'm going to declare an interest in 5.2 and not sit in that. The reason being is the objector, Dr Wilding, is my former next door neighbour. And although it's 20 years plus since we lived next door to each other, and I think I've seen them at a party once since then, it's absolutely vital that things are not only done correctly, but seen to be done correctly. And so for the avoidance of any concern about that, I will withdraw, and Councillor McGrath will chair for that one. John, you want to raise something as well?
Yes, Chair. Just on 5.4, to make everyone aware, the landlord of the Star is Damien McGrath. Most of you will know my name's John McGrath. We are not related, right? But obviously I've got a pub as well, and I have known Damien through the trade for a long time. So I just wondered, the best thing to do is tell everyone that, David, isn't it?
It is indeed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any advice from legal on that? I would have thought John's okay to...
Yeah, no, that's...
Yeah.
Sounds like an machinery thing.
Yes. Okay.
I should also say the first item, 5.1, Councillor Lydia Ball, who's a colleague of all of ours, is one of the neighbouring properties that's affected by that, but I don't think it would prevent us all from deciding on this if it prevents any of us.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, I think we all just need to be conscious of that, but thank you very much for drawing it to our attention. Okay, item 3, minutes of the meeting on the 1st of September, which are pages 5 to 10 of the agenda. I'll move these as a true and correct record. Any
I'll second them, Chair.
corrections? Thank you very much. Any corrections or amendments that are required? Thank you very much. Can I see all those in favour then? Thank you, and that is carried, so I shall sign these. Okay, thanks, Don. We'll record your abstention. Pardon me. Thank you. Okay, move on then to item 4, notification of lobbying. There are forms that councillors fill in if they've been lobbied. It's absolutely fine to lobby members of this committee over planning applications. That happens all the time. But as I've already said, absolutely crucial that things are not only done but seen to be done rightly. So if members have been lobbied, we make a written record of it, and I do ask people to just declare that at the start of them speaking so that people are aware. Okay, so that takes us then to the individual items. So firstly, application 5.1, which is construct a multi-use games area facility, including fencing. This is Alresworth Junior and Infant School in Alresworth, obviously. This came to the committee back in July when Councillor Grindell chaired, because Councillor McGraw and I were both isolating. And over to you, Mr Dawson, to introduce it.
Thank you, Chair. As you've said, it was previously deferred from the 7th of July Planning Committee meeting to seek clarity or propose moving the Mugger as a multi-use games area close to the road, and to clarify some issues on drainage. In terms of the drainage, the Mugger surface will be fully permeable, and therefore any rain will drain straight through it into the ground below. So from our point of view, there are no issues here. With regard to its relocation, that's east of the site, the suggested relocation has been resisted due to the proximity to the main road on issues of health and safety and on grounds of deterring unauthorised use by trespassers, as we located close to the edge of the school site. So, similar to how we said in July, we're of the view that it's not out of keeping within the school grounds, and the high hedges mean it's largely hidden from view. The location due to the flattest part of the site, essentially. The main issues would be noise, but it's been conditioned to be only school hours or to 4:30, so on school hours, not for private hire, and no floodlighting. These are the conditions suggested. We've had no environmental and health objections to this. The boards are designed to limit the noise from the balls hitting them, and we consider it suitable use in a school site, no issues, so therefore Planning Department recommends approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, Chair.
Oh.
Sorry, late items on this, totally forgot. We've had an email received from Alresworth Parish Council, emails in support of the new facility generally, which benefits the school and its pupils. We'd like to see conditions in respect of hours of use, the colour of the fencing, and prior agreement to any future lighting. Just covered that. And we'd like to see compensatory planting adjacent to the multi-use games area. Sorry about that.
Thank you very much. Well, we have a public speaker on this, who is Mr Warren Sanderson. Mr Sanderson, if you'd like to take the seat in front of you, sir, and the right-hand button, brilliant, that's the right one, because I can see the lights on. So you have 3 minutes, and sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you. In opposition to the Mugger, beneath the proposed site for the Mugger lays the crown of an artesian spring line, which floods during extreme weather conditions. No proposals have been submitted to alleviate any water egress onto our properties in the future. 4 years ago, extensive flooding occurred, needing remedial work to drain the lake that had formed. Before the housing and school were built, this northwest corner was a large spring pond, and even after all these years, amphibians gather each February there. Excess water was drained by a stream along the northern boundary, now sadly neglected and unmanaged. Also beneath the site of the Mugger, where the Mugger sits, is a large soakaway, which will be capped off by the concrete base, adding to more flooding. The infilling of the pool and the building of the soakaway used the rubble of the old foundry when the site was levelled. If, as well as gardens, the rubble contains brick, tile, slag and asbestos. I asked the Planning Committee if they were to support this application, if a proviso could be made that the stream is returned to its original state and that a suitable land drain is included. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. If you'd like to just press the button off, that's brilliant, and then go back to your seat. Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, there's no other public speakers on this, so I shall move the recommendation which is set out on page 13 and 14, which is to grant planning permission.
I second that, Chair.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Pringle, this first came at your request. Do you want to speak first on this?
There's one thing I'd like to sort of state right at the beginning, that the late item doesn't really represent the late item that was sent by Horsworth Parish Council, because as you can see, that's a very small paragraph. That's the document that was sent this morning. And the very first point in the document they sent this morning was that the Parish Council want to support any new facility which benefits the school and its public, but what they suggested way back in July, and they're doing the same again, is that it's moved to where we suggested it should perhaps be considered to be moved at the July meeting. And what also happened at the July meeting was that there was a unanimous decision by this council, this planning committee, to defer it, to look at moving that pitch to the other side of, do you see the drawing there, about where the H is on Horsworth. That's where it was going, instead of being around about where the A and W is in Horsworth on the plan. And you know, some of the suggestions they're making about security and all that sort of thing, if children and adults want to get into that sports facility, whether it's near the road or where they're suggesting in the vicinity of people's houses, they're going to get in. So the idea of it can't go there is because it's not secure. It doesn't hold any standing at all, really. And as the gentleman just said, there is an issue with flooding in the area where they're proposing to put this pitch. And surely, if we know that's there, then what we should be doing really is suggesting or making it be built where there's no danger of flooding. So I don't need to say any more than that, apart from the fact that I guess myself, Councillor McGrath in his county council position, and Councillor Ball in her Broxtowe position like me, we were all at the meeting last night with Horsworth Parish Council. It was them that brought the subject up, and it was that parish council that unanimously last night asked for it to be put where they asked for it in July, into the right hand side of the drawing as we're looking at face. So that's about all I've got to say, really.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Councillor Owen, Councillor Philip Owen.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I have to say I do find the resubmission of the application without any changes or apparent consideration for what the Planning Committee said last time as something of a bit of an affront to us all. And as I say, I'm particularly disappointed. There's no question that muggers do generate noise. It's the nature of the beast. I recall some years ago that this council took out a noise abatement order against a mugger that was in Greasley. Some of you will remember that, and that noise abatement order is still in place. I remember going back even further, we had a mugger to the rear of the Horsendale Primary School, which was operated at the time by Nuttall Parish Council, and it was a constant source of complaints from residents who lived adjacent to it. Now, clearly, this is a facility that the school want, and I am happy to support them as far as that is concerned. But why make it difficult for residents who live where the proposed mugger is going to go? Why make it difficult for those residents when there is a clear solution and mitigation to the inevitable noise that will emanate from that mugger? And the clear solution is to have the site of the mugger at the opposite end, in other words, on the roadside. And we're told, Chairman, that the only reason that they don't want to do that is for security purposes. Now, I think Councillor Pringle has pointed out What's the difference in terms of security between where it's proposed now and the application and what we as a planning committee and what I believe residents are suggesting, the situation at the roadside? The mugger will be surrounded by a security fence, which, looking at other muggers, is what, at least 8 feet, 10 feet high. 3 meters. Well, I don't deal in meters. They're for gas and electricity. In other words, you're talking about 12 to 13 feet high. So you've got a security fence 12 to 13 feet high. Now, are we seriously suggesting that it's going to be any more difficult for anybody that wants to get into it to clamber up that 13-foot security fencing where it's proposed to be situated according to this application than it is by the roadside? That is utter nonsense. There's no question to my mind that it is utter nonsense to suggest that. What I suspect they want is that if people are going to get into it, they want the houses around to try and act as local policemen. Well, that's not their job. Now, I don't think the school are playing fair. They can have their cake and the residents can eat it. They can have the mugger and the residents don't need to be disturbed because the positioning of the mugger can be at the roadside. So I will not vote for this application in its current form. If the applicant comes back and says, well, we've listened to what you, planning committee, you residents have said, because academy schools are charged with working together with the local community. Quite a few of them seem to forget that nowadays, but they are supposed to be an integrated part of the community. This doesn't seem to me to be good community relations. So I, Chairman, will vote against this on the basis that they have not listened to the local community, they have not listened to this committee.
Thank you very much. 9 metres 10 inches. 9 feet 10 inches. I've just looked it up. That's 3 metres. Okay. Anybody else? Councillor McGrath.
Chair, yeah, as Don said, I was at the meeting last night. And to be fair, as Councillor Owens pointed out as well, the only thing that, I'll say it, upset him most was it wasn't rotated as we requested in the previous meeting. Everything else is mitigated for because obviously they restricted the hours, which everyone was happy with, right, which is 4:30 or 1600. So everything else he was happy with, but the way it is situated at the minute was the biggest bugbear. So I'd ask Ryan, why have they come back with this? I've read the report and some of it says something to do with the floodplate or it won't flood if it's situated that way. But there must be a reason why they still haven't looked in to why they haven't put it that way, which should suit everybody. Because you don't want to lose this, because A, it's good for the children, it's good for the people at Horsworth, and it's something that most kids want to do. It's going to be multi-use, multi-games, everything that most children would like to do. And there is no playing fields around there anyway, only the ones at the bottom. But also, as that gentleman pointed out, I think the flooding has been a problem in Horsworth for a number of years, right? And I think that needs to be looked at through the county side of it because it's drainage and all that, which I've spoken to someone about. I think Ken Rigby was trying his best. But if Ryan could explain why it has to still be that way, it still might sway me. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll ask Ryan to come in with all the things at the end, any comments that he makes. It's actually the hours that are proposed are in condition 3, it's 6 p.m, not 4 p.m. Okay, so it's 1800. Councillor Grindal.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Obviously, I remember chairing this, and actually, there hasn't been much change at all regarding the application here. We did recommend that it should go back and be looked at and possibly moved, but this has come back virtually in its same form as it did in July or June. I can't remember which. And I'm not happy about this at all. I think it needs to go back. I'd like to know what Mr. Dawson thinks about it, and I shall be listening very intensely about that, Chair. But at the moment, I'm not happy about passing this at all.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else wishing to speak? No, in which case I'll ask Mr. Dawson if there's anything you want to come back on. Obviously had a couple of questions there.
Thank you, Chair. Two things. I'll deal with the flooding first. That's quite straightforward. They've said that the site will drain naturally in terms of even though it's got flooding surface go through it into the grass. That shouldn't affect the flooding in any way at all. With regards to moving it, we asked them. They were either heard the committee or saw last time if they wished to move it, and they've come back. This is their answer saying they don't want to move for the grounds we've raised in the report. So my suggestion would be to committee members that if they're happy, go with the recommendation. If they're unhappy, go against the recommendation, because we've gone back to them already to say members would prefer it to be located here. Committee raised concerns about flooding and concerns about its location. They've come back and addressed the flooding issues and come back and said they don't want to put it near the road for the reasons outlined in the report. They want to leave it where it is. So in my view, I want to lead anyone. We've already said to them this is what we think as a committee. They're aware of that and they've come back in its current form. So I think we vote on it one way or the other based on that. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Grindell.
Yeah, I'd like to find out, Chair, legally where we stand on this.
Well, if you don't like it, vote no. There's no legal comeback on this. We've already told the applicants what the concerns were, and they've chosen not to address them. And so, what you have to decide is whether or not the failure to address it is something that would make you vote no to. If it is, you vote no. If you're happy with it, you vote for. And in terms of obviously of noise, the mugger is limited in use, so it's not a direct comparison with those that are available to the public to use, such as the Greasley one, where, as Councillor Owen correctly said, we actually had to take out take action against it because of the noise that was generating. This is limited to 6 p.m. and it's in the school field where kids can create noise during the school day in any case. But there is an alternative location, which is what members thought about last time. And if you think it should be in that location, then vote against. Okay, Councillor Pringle. Yes.
Yeah, they don't actually want to change the layout of the pitch. That was also one of their suggestions, was to turn it through 90 degrees. What we suggested is exactly where the same line, but on the right hand side. So that's all it was. And basically, as we've all said, they've just come back and haven't addressed that at all. You know, so.
Okay, anybody else? No? In which case, it's been
Chair,
moved.
just
sorry, Councillor McGrath.
I think you've put it quite right there, Chair. I mean, all right, the applicant hasn't done what we've requested, but we're in a situation here. Do we want the children of that school then to wait for another whatever and have no benefit whatsoever? Because I think basically muggies are there. They're all weather pitchers, aren't they, for children to, well, basically enjoy their lives, to be blunt, and learn sports and all that. So, all right, the applicant hasn't done it, which, to be honest, well, hasn't made me happy, but I think we have to look at the other things that make, well, the children happy, to be honest, and that's me. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else? Councillor Patterson.
I'd just be concerned with moving a sports area closer to a major road with the emissions and things and the effects. I mean, I know in one meeting we did discuss about parks being too close to roads, so it's a similar sort of thing, isn't it, if we move it closer to a major road?
Okay, thank you. Councillor Pringle.
Sorry. Right. The main road's not an issue. There's a large trees all the way along the boundary, you can't actually see the main road from the proposed position or even the position we're suggesting it goes to. It's no effect at all. And the other thing is that there's nobody in Alresworth, and I don't think there's anyone here in this committee that wants to stop the children from getting it. What we just want it to be is in a way where it won't affect residents, because the residents, when it's close to the road, are across the other side of the road, so they've got the traffic that's damping noises. They've got traffic noise anyway. But that particular area where it's at, it was described to me by one of the residents. It's a bit like an arena, because what you've got, as well as houses, you've got a little shopping precinct with balconies on it. So what happens is the noise, even when the children are just playing normally in the playground, the noise comes into that sort of area and magnifies just ordinary children playing in the school. So what's going to happen if we have all right, they do limit noise, but there's still going to be noise coming across during the day, and all the people that are living there are going to be affected by it. The other thing is, in their application, the applicant says that they're protected by large hedgerows. Well, in actual fact, on the site, when we visit on the site, there are no large hedgerows where they want to put it, but where they actually don't want to put it, there's a big hedgerow on two sides of it. So to me, we don't want the children not to have it, but I think as our leader said on the night in July, he said it's the right thing in the wrong place. They were the words he used that night, and I think they haven't changed it, and I personally am not going to change my mind.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else? No. If not, it has been moved and seconded, so can I see those in favour of granting planning permission, please? 2, 3, 4, 5, and those against? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I abstain. So that is refused. Okay, thank you. So item 5.2 is 9 Glebe Street, and this is where I'm going to hand over to Councillor McGrath, and I shall slip outside until you've done.
Right. Evening. Good evening, everyone. My name is Councillor McGrath. I'm Vice Chair of the committee, and obviously I'll be chairing this one, 5.2, as Councillor Watts has declared an interest. The item is 9 Glebe Street, Beeston, and Mr Dawson will now introduce the item. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you. First off, late items. Remember at this time. We have an email received on 29th of September commenting on the content of the committee report in respect of the overuse of the word compromise in the report, unaware of other sites considered for the garage, emphasis on the conservation advisor's comments which considered to be wrong, and that the application should be assessed or preservation and enhancement and not on engineering constraints. Everything else is covered in the report. Members may recall the dwelling that was granted permission on this site following committee meeting in July. Some of the plans and the elevations that are in the actual submitted documents show this dwelling for completeness. This application seeks a 2-storey and single-storey extensions and is a revised scheme from a previously approved scheme in April 2020, and quite a lot of planning weight is attached to that from this being a revised scheme. The main changes are outlined on page 32 and the images on page 33 in the report, which go into quite a lot of detail. The main increase is the ridge height of the roof to 7.8 metres, which is half a metre increase on previous. Increase in the dormers from 2 to 3. The existing Elm Avenue elevation will have a vaulted ceiling porch. This remains with the slight increase in the roof height. There's a contemporary 2-storey side and rear extension proposed and integral garage and gated access off Elm Avenue. We think it's a very large plot and we're content the site can accommodate these changes. There's some limited impact on amenity, we consider to be very minor. And the appearance of the building will be altered. We are happy with the application, recommend approval. Conservation Officer originally objected to the plans, but following discussions with the applicant and subsequent amendments that were submitted to the scheme, has raised an objection. She's happy with the combination of, I use her words, old and new, and considered that the final submitted drawings are a culmination of aligning old and new in a positive manner. She outlines there will be some harm to the conservation area, but it's not considered to be substantial. With no objections from the Conservation Officer, we're happy to approve this. Again, the main assessment of this is on page 39. While some of these changes have been required based on engineering constraints, if either ourselves as the planning department or the Conservation Officer was unhappy with the final drawings submitted, we'd recommend refusal. We aren't, we're quite content with this. We're happy with these plans, particularly as it's a slight increase to revised scheme already, therefore recommend approval. Thank you, Chair. That's the speakers, isn't it?
Thank you, Ryan. In order to open this debate, I need a seconder. Could I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Grindle. We have 3 public speakers. Right, so if you take your seat over there, the first gentleman is a Mr. T. Baker, who's the applicant. Thank you, mate. You got 3 minutes, Mr. Baker.
Thank you. Good evening, members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Tom Baker. I'm the applicant and owner of 9 Glebe Street, Beeston. Having last been before you in July of this year, I'm here again, this time to speak in support of the revised proposals at my family home. I'll begin by fully endorsing the positive and robust recommendation from your planning officers. This recommendation reflects a comprehensive and robust approach by my professional agent, who again has worked closely with your planning officer and conservation officer. Whilst we had hoped to construct the scheme for my family home as previously permitted, upon engagement with our structural engineer, it became apparent changes were required. We have worked hard with your conservation officer, in their words, to produce a scheme that provides the desired space, layout and architectural style, whilst trying to balance the requirements of the conservation area and the principal elevation of the existing dwelling. The Conservation Officer confirms that despite some initial concerns, we have positively responded to their requests for changes and successfully created a scheme that is able to provide contemporary living whilst conserving the style of the original dwelling. We have also worked hard during the determination of the application to listen to and, where appropriate, respond to any other concerns raised by interested parties. Whilst it is not possible to satisfy all local concern, the approach here has resulted in a proposal has evolved positively and has no unresolved objections from any statutory consulting. In a wider sense, the considered analysis in the report before you confirms that the revised development will continue to preserve the character of the conservation area, and in doing so carefully records how the development proposed reflects traditions long established in this part of Beeston. This includes a tradition of building individually designed homes which seek to respect the best qualities of the surrounding development whilst accommodating carefully conceived contemporary additions. The development complies with relevant planning policies. There are no other material considerations which indicate planning permission should be refused. All objections have been comprehensively addressed in the report. As such, I respectfully request that planning permission for this revised development is granted and with the appropriate recommended conditions. A positive decision tonight will be warmly received by me and my family. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, mate. We now have the second speaker. This is Dr. Wilding. And this gentleman is raising his concerns. You've got 3 minutes, Doctor, when you get there. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to speak tonight. I should say at the outset, regardless of the final outcome, we are simply keen that the review of this application meets the highest professional standards and minimises the chances of subsequent litigation. We are told that the proposed revisions to the prior approved design are a result of head height issues and engineering constraints. However, they should not be allowed simply because the approved scheme is not implementable or provide adequate amenity for the applicant. An alternative siting for a garage does not have to be found simply because the existing garage is to be removed by the approval of another application, i.e. the infill. The Conservation Officer confirms that plans will cause less than substantial harm to the conservation area. The appraisal document specifically identifies 9 Glebe Street as a positive unlisted building. The National Planning Policy Framework requires any harm to such designated heritage assets to be weighed against the public benefits of the proposal. It's important to distinguish legally, Chair, that this question is not to be addressed as a simple balancing exercise, but there needs to be a clear justification for overriding the presumption in favour of preservation. For the recently approved infill development at 9 Glebe, the public benefit was argued to be one additional home within an urban location. Whilst we felt this was a weak public benefit, it was nevertheless a public benefit. From the report, it appears that the benefits of the new scheme are identified as being an acceptable design and not impacting significantly on neighbour amenity. Even if we agree with them, these are not public benefits. We accept that such benefits do not always have to be visible or accessible to the public in order to be genuine public benefits. For example, works to a private dwelling which secure its future as a designated heritage asset could be a public benefit. The currently approved plans allow a modern extension to be built alongside the arts and crafts features of the original house. Put another way, they help to secure the positive elements of the property and ensure the durability of the heritage asset whilst providing amenity for the applicant. It's not a great public benefit, but in a world where compromise is perhaps necessary, it pushes that to the absolute limit. However, that argument no longer holds for these revised plans. The overall site will be compressed with the addition of the approved infill. It's also clear that the further envisaged enlarged remodelling that there is essentially no meaningful element of the original arts and crafts style remaining. Therefore, as no public benefit accrues from these plans, they do not meet the MPPF test and in the view of our external advisors must be rejected. I should say at this point, in the spirit of searching for compromise, we asked for a meeting with Mr Dawson, which was declined. In addition, in order to prepare for tonight's meeting, we requested access to the planning file last week, which is our right under your best practice charter, and that has not been forthcoming. We are not naive and fully accept new plans will need to be approved, but I trust the committee agree that it's important they comply with the MPPF test such that they do not result in the complete loss of the heritage asset and retain as much of the arts and crafts building as possible. Thank you for listening, Chair.
Thank you, Doctor. Now we have the ward member, Councillor Patrick. Thank you very much, Shannon.
Chair, members of the Planning Committee, I've called this application to committee for two reasons. The planned extended development at 9 Glebe Street will undermine the importance of the conservation area to our community. Secondly, I am keen to ensure committee scrutiny for this damaging trend in our obligations to heritage assets. There have been 10 representations about this application from worried and angry local residents, which build on the 39 representations against the infill development, if you remember, that was approved last July. The continued level of concern raises the fundamental question about how we approach our most sensitive of planning applications in a conservation area. The appraisal document for the conservation area specifically identifies a host dwelling at 9 Glebe Street as a positive unlisted building with positive boundary treatment. In addition, only in July 2019, a senior Broxtowe planning officer, Catherine Lowe, rejected the very first plans from the applicant for the primary dwelling. She argued that the property makes a positive contribution to the conservation area designation and is a locally listed interest building. Proposals that significantly impact a heritage asset need to provide clear justification for how the merits of the proposal outweigh the harm arising from the proposal. Due to the significance of the alterations and their contemporary appearance, the development as it currently stands would result in a complete loss of heritage asset, and therefore the harm caused does not outweigh the benefits of the scheme. A proposal which has more elements of an arts and crafts style building and retains as much of the original building as possible could be considered more acceptable. A reminder that this was only 2 years ago, and whilst we have endured a pandemic since then, the planning principles within the conservation area outlined by Ms. Lowe remain valid today. Permission was subsequently granted for extensions and alterations which made a substantive changes to the scale, appearance and arts and crafts character of the building. However, within that scheme, elements of the original building were clearly discernible. The wall facing Glebe Street, some semblance of the scale of the existing roof when viewed from Glebe Street, The side wing is also at least set back from glebe, which promotes the original wall of the dwelling as the most prominent element. This was not a perfect outcome, but evidence that we can blend the needs of all stakeholders in the planning process. Where there is a will, there is a way. The current proposal now seeks to further enlarge the approved dwelling without any regard to its art and crafts heritage. On glebe, the roof over the original section would be significantly larger and would now incorporate 3 dormers rather than the approved 2 dormers. The side wing is also larger, and a double garage is now added to the corner of the building. The garage need is purely because we have improved an infill development at the site of the current garage. The new scheme also introduces a flat roof element on 2 prominent elevations. The roof of the side wing is also significant and materially higher than the approved scheme, with a consequential impact on amenity. The Report 2 Committee makes it clear this application will lead to less than substantial harm, but as required in the National Planning Policy Framework, no public benefit has been identified to balance this harm. Therefore, the application fails to meet the test of the NPPF and opens up the Council to subsequent legal action by objectors. Finally, I do feel the presentation of the plans is disingenuous. There is no attempt in the plans to show the impact of the revised design for the primary dwelling in conjunction with the approved infill. I believe it is clear that the combination of the 2 dwellings will overwhelm the site, remove the open and spacious character of the existing plot, and have a negative impact on the conservation area. I urge the committee to reject this application and comply with planning practice guidance to conserve and enhance the historic environment of conservation area for future generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. Right, thank you for that. And I open the discussion up for debate. Anyone want to speak? Oh, we'll go straight. Ryan, do you want to come back with any points raised, mate? There's no one wants to talk. Okay, then we'll go straight to the vote. Right, can I see those in favour, please? Well, that's unanimous then. Right, thank you very much. Thanks for your time, everyone, and thanks for the speakers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Right, so we move on to item 5.3. Pardon me. This is construct a dwelling land adjacent to 3 Edinburgh Row in Kimberley, on pages 51 to 60 of the agenda. Mr Dawson, would you like to introduce this?
Thank you, Chair. Planning so constructing a dwelling. This time around it's smaller. Planning permission was refused in 2002. No, it wasn't. Planning permission was refused in 2020 under a previous reference of 4884 on grounds of loss of amenity to neighbouring properties. This scheme has come in for a smaller property with a lower overall eaves, roof height, and a smaller footprint. The issue on the site, if any, is that the site is set at a slightly high level, approximately 2 metres to the rear gardens of the existing properties 3 to 9 Edinburgh Row. However, this will only be faced by the side elevation of the proposed dwelling and the opaquely glazed bath and window. So essentially, whilst there are levels differences here, due to the lack of overlooking and the small scale nature of the development, we're happy that no detrimental issues in amenity terms occur. We're happy with the design and there are no access or highways issues here. Brownfield site was suitable in our view for approval for one dwelling, therefore recommend approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Again, we have a public speaker, and again it's a Mr Baker, but this time Mr David Baker. Mr Baker, if you'd like to take the seat. Thank you.
The microphone's already on.
Lovely.
Right, forgive me
Okay,
for my
so,
dress, I've had to come
yeah.
straight from work, but I'm not a speaker anyway. I just want to build this bungalow just for myself and my partner to retire into. We currently live up the road in a far too big house. Always loved Kimberley and just simply want to build a nice retirement home for ourselves. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. If you'd like to take your seat again then. You probably win the award for the shortest speaker this year.
Yeah, I didn't.
Okay. Pardon me. Well, the recommendation is to grant planning permission, so which is on pages 56 and 57. I shall move that recommendation.
I'll second that, Chair.
Thank you very much, and I'll now open it up for debate. Councillor Robinson, you called this application to committee, so would you like to go first?
I can't promise to be quite as brief as the speaker, but I won't speak for much longer. Chair, to start off with, Mr Dawson, I think rightly said, this was my understanding, that this was an original application was brought but was refused for various reasons. I had some complaints from residents at the time and they have still materialised, Chair, since then. It is a very awkward stretch of road. I'm not totally convinced, probably like some of the arguments that we've heard before, exactly what has changed significantly, but what the arguments against from the comments that have been and observations that have been made to me, apart from the normal things about traffic, there is one particular comment that worries me. It says traffic generation and access. This is for one individual. The proposal would either block or significantly interfere with our total right to pedestrian from one Edinburgh Road. And then it talks about the design and appearance and layout too large for the land available. I think this is relevant, Chair. There is a lot of unease in that part of Kimberley. I mentioned this in I think the past two planning committee meetings. There is a house not too far away from there that somehow got planning permission on Gilt Hill that blocks out so much space and light, and I think local residents now are very concerned about other applications that seems to have been given a green light, and there's a lot of unease about this one particular application that was approved, and because of this seems to be a lot in a very small place that is quite awkward for traffic. I have some major concerns about this, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Philip Owen.
Yeah, first of all, Chairman, may I ask a question of Mr Dawson? Looking at the report, I can't see any reference to any objections being listed. Have there been objections, and if so, why aren't they listed, or have I missed them?
You're certainly right that there aren't any listed.
Yeah, I've got two here.
Page 54.
Oh, I beg your pardon, yes. Paragraph 5.1. Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah, 5.
Oh, I'd missed that because it was under Nottinghamshire County Council Highways. I'd just seen no objections, which is quite interesting. We know that they don't make objections usually, but one property isn't going to make a deal of difference. I don't think to that particular stretch of road, which yes is a fairly busy stretch of road, but residents advise me there are that many potholes at the moment they can't do any speed anyway. So That might change when I get it resurfaced, but times will tell on that. And could you also confirm, if I heard correctly, the original the application of 2020 was turned down because of the height of the property. This new property, this new application, is at a lower height. Did I hear that correctly?
You did. First off, I don't think it's very clear in the report about where the objections are because it is under 5.1, so it should be a 5.2 for the actual other comments. So apologies, it's a bit misleading. And yes, the previous scheme was refused on amenity grounds, largely based on the height and overlooking potential. This scheme is lower, than just being a bungalow with no windows. So from our view, we're more content this time around. Thank you.
Thank you. How do you finish, Councillor Owen, or do you? Right, thank you. Anybody else? No? Well, it's been moved and seconded. Can I see those in favour, please? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And those against? 2, 3, 4. 5, beg your pardon. Okay. So that is carried. Thank you very much. So you have your planning permission. Okay. What I forgot to do, I beg your pardon, on 5.1, when we turned that down, was to propose an amended recommendation that we should delegate to Mr Dawson in consultation with myself the grounds for refusing. So does anyone mind if I now propose that and we just take a quick vote on it? No one's objected, so I'll propose that. You're going to second it, John?
I'll second that, yeah.
Thank you. I could just see those in favour. Yeah, lovely. Thank you very much. Any against? No, fine. Okay, we move on then to item 5.4, which is variation of condition 3 on planning permission from last year to extend the hours that live and recorded music could be played at the Star Inn on Middle Street. So currently it's till 9 p.m. and this is to increase it to 10 p.m. Mr Dawson would like to introduce this.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, those who have a good memory will remember that initially we suggested 10 o'clock as planning department and the committee members reduced it down to 9. It's suggested here extend the hours from 9 to 10 as per the regional officer recommendation, as this would be consistent with the premises licence hours operation as well and would contribute towards the vitality and nighttime economy. They're seeking an extra hour for the enclosed marquee part, not the external element. I'll show a picture in a minute of what I mean. But those of you who know the Star, it'll be the internal bit that's seeking an extra hour for, not the external marquee. So the more substantial structure, which is further away from neighbours, and therefore it should be less of an issue. There are no objections to this. We had no issues last time. We're happy this time. Recommend approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. We don't have anyone to speak on this. I shall move the recommendation, which is to grant planning permission.
I'll second that, Chair.
Thank you. And I'll open this up for discussions. Councillor Grindell and then Councillor...
Thank you, Chair. This particular application, as far as licensing part of it goes, has come to licensing before, and looking at the situation that they want this 10 o'clock, I think that I would be quite happy for that to happen, but I think that they should close at quarter to 10, so that they've got a quarter of an hour to actually put their equipment away. So at 10 o'clock, everything obviously then music-wise comes to a stop. I think that's the only thing that I would suggest we do.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bagshaw.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. We discussed here really no different from that. I was just going to say that we used to have 10 minutes drinking up time in pubs, and I think I've no objection to this extra hour, but we should make it to 9:50. I think 10 minutes to clear up and stop what they're doing, would be considered fair to all neighbours in the vicinity.
Thank you very much. Councillor Jackson.
Yeah, I tend to disagree. I think we got this right previously with 9 o'clock. It is a residential area. It's edge of town centre, and describing that as a more substantial part of a marquee. It's still a marquee. It's still completely porous when it comes to. There's no soundproofing qualities to that marquee. It's quite a substantial building. There's an upstairs function room in this bottom left-hand corner above that kind of. Well, it's an old barn or stable or whatever it is. There are plenty of parts within the brick-built solid structure, which is a lot more soundproof, that could have live music or recorded music late into the night if they wanted to. The bit that's edged in red is a marquee. It's fabric walls, and I just don't think it's appropriate that we have amplified music in that beyond 9 o'clock at night. I think that was the right decision a year ago, and I stand by it.
Okay, I'm afraid I can't ask you to contribute once the debate started.
People were requested to contribute today, and unfortunately, the wrong people were contacted when I asked them to speak today.
Right, well, no, I'm sorry, I can't allow that. I'm afraid the rules don't allow that. I've got Councillor Philip Owen, then Councillor Greg Marshall.
Yes, Chairman, I'm inclined to agree with the points that Councillor Jackson have made. This business of having 10 minutes drinking up time is irrelevant to this application. It's an application to extend the time for which they can make a lot of noise through amplified systems. And I always ask myself the question when I'm looking at a planning application, is this something that I would want near to me? And the answer very much is no. Now, you can argue that the pub was there before people moved into the houses, and that is probably very true. But the amplified music, or the potential for amplified music, certainly wasn't there. When you look at the bigger picture of the site plan and the immediate surrounds, and I remember this from last time, there are a significant number of family dwellings in fairly close proximity to that particular hostelry. And I'm convinced, Councillor Jackson said that we got it right last time. I'm not sure that we did, because I don't think we should have allowed any, to be perfectly honest. Because we're too fond of giving permissions which are all right for those that get the permissions, but are disruptive to the family life and to the lifestyles of those that have to live with the decisions of this committee. And therefore, I'm not prepared to support this, because I think it's quite wrong. It's imposing something upon a neighbourhood that never expected to get this imposed upon them. They've already had things imposed as a result of the previous application. I think this is a step too far. These people are never content. They're never content with what they've got. They come in and get the permissions, and then still that's not right. They've got to go on a step further. Well, I'm sorry, I'm prepared to put the people who live around about the property before anything else, and I shall vote against it.
Thank you very much. Councillor Marshall.
Thank you, Chair. I know this pub well. I know how the estimation of this pub has gone up in the eyes of local residents and the people of Beeston from the way that it's run and the way that it's managed, and indeed the standard of hostelry that it has now become. Most recently, of course, the central sponsor, of course, to one of the best events in Broxtowe on an annual basis, that of Oxjam. And it's almost universally supported in terms of the local social media chat, and indeed the people who frequent that place. And I think that the concept that this is somehow kind of overstepping the mark, I think, is a false one, and I don't think the application in that sense is excessive at all. It's applying for 3 sessions per calendar week, and it's applying, which I think we could equate to Friday and Saturday, perhaps. It doesn't say there will be 3 sessions a week, and it doesn't say there must be 3 sessions a week. It's giving that opportunity for a successful and well frequented and well run establishment to contribute to something we're trying to do from a planning perspective, which is improve the nighttime economy and the standard of establishments in Beeston. I don't think this will be detrimental. I think the landlords will listen to any concerns that arise out of it, and in that sense, I think would want to work with either planning or indeed the community to address some of those concerns, because that's the track record that we have actually already seen. So in that sense, I would support the application. I think the point I would make is one raised by other councillors tonight. You know, that expectation and that steer from the committee that, you know, that wrapping up time is stuck to, and indeed, you know, it's almost like pulling the plug at that 10 o'clock time to ensure that there isn't overrunning in that sense. And my experience says that will be adhered to. I support the application. Thank you.
Very much, Councillor John McGrath.
Chair, obviously, the applicant interrelation. But I fully echo what Greg says, to be fair. I don't think some of us realise, not everybody, how hard it is now at the minute to keep businesses going. And by restricting them on certain things, especially when you've got a well-run establishment, to me, it's just nipping things in the bud when we're trying to keep businesses going. I think 10 o'clock's reasonable. I mean, I had a band on, they were out by 10. There was probably 10 people in there, which cost me a lot of money. That's me, just saying it's me. But at the end of the day, as Greg pointed out, Beeston's more of a hub than some of the areas around here. And to keep it vibrant, good and all that is what it needs. And 10 o'clock to me is fair. If you wanted it to go on to 12, I think we'd have a reasonable argument, because we have certain, and I don't get involved, establishments in our area that are open till later and do cause us problems. One of them doesn't play music, but has caused us no end of problems throughout the pandemic and other things. And there's no time limit on them, and they're open till 2 o'clock and they don't have music. So I think what we need to look at is the sensible thing that we've come out with and just go forward from there. And I'm sure John Miley and his team, if there is any problems, will deal with it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I mean, it seems to me that if we grant this permission, we have to be very clear in saying 10 means 10. It doesn't mean 5 past, 10 past, quarter past or half past 10. The neighbours and the pub have to live with each other. So there needs to be some recognition of that and some compliance by the pub to make sure that things do finish when they're meant to finish. Thank you. Anybody else want to say anything? No. Well, it's been moved and seconded. Can I see all those in favour of granting the variation, please? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And those against? 1, 2, 3, 4. So that is carried. Thank you very much. Thank you. So it's carried. Okay, that takes us on to item 5.5. And this is land at Blake Road in Stapleford. You'll recall we had an application at the last meeting for the retention of some gates at the farm here. This is on the same site, and so I took the view that I didn't want this just to be nodded through without the committee looking at it, seeing as we'd overturned the recommendation of the officers on the last occasion, hence it's come to the committee. But it's an application to remove the existing mast and to replace it with a higher mast, I think an extra 3 metres being added on with 12 antenna at the top. So Mr Dawson, would like to introduce this.
Yeah, you've largely said pretty much all I was going to say, to be fair. It's all good. The replacement mast from 22 metres to 25 metres, so an additional 3 metres. All replacement equipment is on the same footprint as the existing antenna, or antennae, whatever. The principle was established as the antenna already there. It is located in the Greenbelt. We do not believe the overall difference is significant. It's required for 5G modernisation in terms of improving sort of 5G coverage in that area. I think it needs permission because under telecommunications PD, if you go over 15 metres, you need full planning permission as opposed to usual PD. Although I'm happy to be corrected on that. We tried to find it out earlier and couldn't look into it in detail. Either way, it needs planning application. We reckon approval here. Quite happy with it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Well, if they paid for an application, we'll take the money off them. Pardon me. Okay, there's no public speakers on this. I shall move the recommendation to grant planning permission.
I second that, Chair.
Thank you. Any comments, questions or observations? Councillor, well, I'll go to Councillor Grindell first because it's your ward, and then Councillor Jackson.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, yes, I can remember when the planning application came in for the existing one. We got a lot of complaints from neighbours, emails, letters, phone calls. But this particular site is probably the best ideal place to actually place the extra 3 metres on. It's well protected by greenery and trees. It wasn't at one time, it wasn't very good at one time, but they've grown up obviously. I've not had one complaint, one email, one phone call this time moaning about it. It's the committee in its mind to put the extra 3 metres up. I won't be doing it myself. So I see no problem with this at all, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Jackson.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I won't waste
Okay,
everyone's time.
go on. We've got to stretch this out for another 20 minutes because I'm in a bet with Mr Dawson over what time we're going to finish. Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
Thank you.
So sorry.
No worries.
Just
I'm
Councillor
not
Wilmot.
Yeah, we've had 3 of these in our area, and they are obviously becoming more frequent because of the upgrade of the system to 5G. If you want 5G, then you've got to accept some changes. They've 2 of them went through without any controversy whatsoever. One, there was some controversy from neighbours, but they've accepted it and it's finished now. Now we've got another one in the pipeline at the moment. So I see absolutely no difference between what we've had and what is being proposed here. This is remote from any houses, surrounded by woodland. Looks like a perfect solution to me, and I can't see any reason to vote against it.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Anybody else? No, in which case it's been moved and seconded. Can I see all those in favour, please? And that is unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on then to the delegated decisions. I'll take these page by page, so if you want to raise anything, just please shout out at the appropriate point. Page 86, 87, 88. I'm just going to mention one there at the first one in Bramcote, the doggy daycare facility. File closed because they would never validate the application, and I know that the planning department put a huge amount of effort into that to get them to do the right thing and submit the right forms in the, and for some reason they wouldn't. So it just seemed very odd to me. But there you go. They've chosen to waste everyone's time like that. Okay, page 89, 90, and 91. And Councillor McGrath.
I was told by some of the lads that work down there, who've worked down there years, that it's between 40 and 50, what do you call them, troop carriers or car carriers coming out there a day. Right, well that concerns me straight away, because the only way out is left up to the motorway. Whether that can carry 50 car carriers a day, it's not up to me, because I don't believe that bridge could going over the Erewash. But then if there's an accident, that means they'll turn right into Stapleford. Now, surely somebody must have had a thought about this, because if they turn right up to the Stafford, obviously most of them car carriers cause problems outside Sandercliff on Nottingham Road anyway, right? And I'm led to believe there's nothing we can do about that. But if there's so-called 50, which is what the rumour is on Towton sidings, surely there must be somehow we can put a limit on that, because there's no way Stafford can deal with 50 or even 10 of them car carriers going through at certain times of the day. All right, fair enough, they can turn left on the station road, which takes them up to the M1, but even Sandyacre at times, the traffic is unbelievable all the way through the town without this being, well, it's been accepted, hasn't it? I'm led to believe the chair told me that it's a lawful thing and been done right. I'd like some more information, please, because I believe this could cause, well, immense problems for the services and everything, especially if there's an accident around the M1 side of the motorway. Thank you.
Yeah, no idea is a straightforward, honest answer. I don't know if you dealt with this, Brian, or not, and can help at all on that. But as far as I'm concerned, it was a certificate of lawfulness and therefore follow the guidelines. I can find out more. Did you deal with that?
Yeah, I assisted Emma with it when she was still at the council, and it's a matter of law in relation to, I think it was a change of use for part of the site. There's no actual development apart from, I think, maybe a slight extension of some hard standing on the site. So I can send you some information into the way that we consider certificates of lawfulness and some more detail specifically into this if you'd like.
Well, if you could please, yeah. Sorry. If you could please, yeah, because the hard standing bit I'm aware is the Towton side, which is where the old sidings used to be, because I used to work down there as well. I'm well aware how big it is, the area, which is what we called the old black pad, right? And that's what it's always been called, and it is very big, as Councillor Grindle will tell you as well. There is a lot of room down there for more than people are saying nearly 12 to 14,000 cars. So whether it's rumours or not, I don't know. So if that's what they've got planned, surely there's something needs to be looked at, because there's no way you can get in and out of that, because there was plans with HS2, I don't know whether it's going ahead to do another roadway down Bessel Lane. So if we're allowing all that much traffic to out one way, well, there's something wrong somewhere. So we need some information, and appreciate it if someone could get it to me, please.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. I can get some information over to you about this.
Thank you.
Councillor Grindle, yes.
I totally support Councillor John McGrath about this. Forget about if HS2 is coming or not. It certainly is a hazard there for vehicles that size. And I think the authorities are going to have to be very careful how they look at this. I know the law's a law. I understand what's happened, but there's something that somewhere along the line they're going to have to come back and look at, because if it gets out of hand, the people in the area are not going to be able to get out or get in. So it's a little bit concerning to me, Chair.
Okay. Thank you. And just to be clear, this is a certificate of lawful use rather than a planning application, so there is no power to call it in. I don't know, Ryan, could you just explain very briefly what the distinction between those two is? Or Bryony, whoever's best placed to do it.
Distinction
Between a planning application and a CLUD.
Okay. Bryony, feel free to correct me by all means. I'm going to get this wrong, but essentially, plan application is basically based on an assessment of whether something is acceptable or not in line with planning policy. A certificate of lawfulness or lawful development or a CLUI or a CLUD is basically purely a decision on facts on law on whether this has been carried out in line with the legal proceedings or not. So you're not making any consideration on issues such as amenity, design, etc., etc. It's purely, this is what we've done, this is the fact, this is in line with guidelines A, B, C. And we say, yes, it is, and no, it isn't. I think that's fair. If it's not, please say as much. But
Yeah, no, I mean, a lot of it is generally based on the General Permitted Development Order, which allows for certain permitted development rights, and that's what the certificate of lawfulness is basically saying. Yes, this either change of use or development is lawful without permission, which is, you know, what this application was. It was a matter of law and of fact in relation to the change of use and some development on the site.
Okay. Right. Thank you. Councillor Pringle.
Car transporters have got very, very low ground clearance. So I think what's going to happen is they're going to start using that road. Certainly if they have to turn right and go through Stapleford, all the speed bumps will disappear, which is probably a good thing. They'll just get ripped to bits by the car transporters. And the same with that little bridge by the church going over the Erewash. I'd be quite surprised if it's not long before that starts, before one gets stuck on that bridge, because that's what they're like. I think that they're very long. They've got wheels right at the back, and when they get to any slight bump in the road, they're on the ground.
Yeah, you're right.
We could have a lottery on how long before one gets stuck, but there we go. Okay, anything else on page 91? 92, oh, yeah, 92? No, in which case I declare the meeting closed. Ryan wins because it's 9:16, 8:16. Thanks.